You don't need to visit me in the hospital anymore, but I do need you to pay for the treatment costs." "What are you talking about?" I couldn't help but feel confused. I had been working tirelessly at part-time jobs for my husband, even after he fell ill. I had been covering the transportation and treatment costs with the money I earned. "Your role is over now. Thanks for everything up until now." "Don't joke around," I said, feeling a mix of disbelief and anger. "I'm completely serious. I'm going to remarry your best friend." Was he really asking me to accept this after dedicating my life to him? Rage bubbled up from the depths of my heart, ready to erupt like magma. As if to provoke me further, he continued, "Sorry, but you're going to have to leave our home soon. It's not your place anymore." "Are you serious?" "Don't make me repeat myself." "Since when?" I asked, the question burning in my mind. "Oh, it's been a while. Probably shortly after I got sick." I was bewildered by this sudden revelation, but I wasn't going to agree to a divorce easily. He might have thought I would comply quietly, but that was a big mistake. "I'm quite busy as well. Here, sign this," he said, pulling out the divorce papers from a drawer. I was irate, wondering how badly he wanted this divorce, but honestly, I was tired of being married to such a person. "Fine, I'll sign it." "Good, that's a smart decision on your part." "Yeah, isn't it?" He looked at me with a smug, mocking expression. There was no need to hold back any more, and so the curtain rose on my quest for revenge. My name is Betty, and I'm an ordinary 50-something housewife. My husband, John, and I were about to celebrate our 28th wedding anniversary. Our son, Alex, got married a year ago and now lives a bit away from us. Up until that point, our life seemed to be going smoothly, but a major change happened about 10 years ago. "I'm sorry for putting you through this." "It can't be helped," I replied. John was diagnosed with stomach cancer during a checkup at his company when he was 40. It was detected early, but it was still a shocking and heart-stopping moment for us. I can barely remember the moment he told me. "I'll probably have to deal with hospital visits and maybe even hospitalization." "I'll handle it. Sorry and thank you." Immediately started working part-time jobs. We had some savings, but I was uncertain about how long he would need treatment and how much it would cost. I informed our son, but he was still in college at the time, and it wasn't practical to ask for his help frequently. "Thank you for today. You've been a big help in so many ways." "No problem at all. We're best friends, aren't we? Besides, it's all give and take." My worried best friend, Susan, came to check on me, and it was really reassuring. She was the one who helped me out when I was having trouble finding a part-time job. Thanks to her, I managed to get by. In fact, when work was busy, I used to ask Susan for rides to and from the hospital. It really helps that you came all this way. Don't mention it. I didn't have much else to do anyway. Still, doesn't your husband say anything about it? "Oh, he's fine. Seems like he's not that interested in me anymore." "What? Really?" A strange voice escaped from me in surprise. I've known Susan for a long time, and she has always been beautiful, never changing. She's the same age as me, and she seems even more charming after turning 40. "You're so beautiful." "I'm envious," I sighed. Standing next to her makes me feel embarrassed. "Have you had any good things happen lately? Your smile seems to have increased just a little." "It's a secret from you." "What's that about?" "You have to tell me sometime." "Some other time," Susan said with a slight lift in her smile. I soon forgot about it, but little did I know what was coming. The treatment was going well, but proportionately, my husband's attitude started to change. "You have it easy." "What?" It was during a hospital visit for his checkup. His sudden words left me confused. "Even if you say you're working, you still rely on your best friend for rides." "What are you talking about?" "Yes, she gives me a ride when I'm busy." "Busy? You're just working at a grocery store. Don't exaggerate." A question came to my mind. I used to ask Susan for rides when I was busy, but recently she started offering to take me on her own. She even went to check on my husband in the hospital on my behalf when he was hospitalized for a checkup. What are you spacing out for? You did bring what I asked for, right? Yes, of course. You could be a bit more thoughtful. Hand it over. What my husband asked for were things to kill time, magazines and drinks. I endured his sarcastic remarks and handed over the convenience store bag. Fortunately, my cancer was detected early, so I am able to be this healthy. But if my condition was worse, it wouldn't have been like this. You can go back now. But isn't there some explanation or something after this? I don't need you here for that. What? I'm your wife. It's only natural for me to hear about it. You don't get it. It's just a progress report. Even so, I tried desperately to argue, but my husband's mind did not change. Thinking that arguing here would be pointless, I decided to leave. If that's how you feel, I'll go back. Yeah, take care. As I closed the door to his room, my husband didn't look at me, engrossed in his magazine. I started to wonder, why am I doing all this? 3 weeks later, my husband was to be discharged, but his attitude only got worse. I'm glad he could be discharged. The next day, we decided to celebrate my husband's return from the hospital by inviting Susan over to our house. Susan, thank you for coming today. Since you've made the effort to come, please make yourself at home. Thank you. What's Betty doing? I'm the main event today, you know. I'll get everything ready now. Then I'll help out too. That's when my husband chimed in, stopping Susan. Susan, you don't have to do anything. You're our guest today. Susan looked at me as if to say, what should I do? I thought it would be nice if she helped, since she seemed unsure, but I kept that thought to myself. Susan, just relax. It's not a big deal. The smile I gave Susan at that moment might have been strained. My feelings were just that complex. Peeking from the kitchen, I saw them continuing their friendly conversation. He was showing her a smile he hadn't shown me since he was diagnosed with cancer. Hey, what are you dawdling for? Sorry. Rushing back to them, my husband started to make snide remarks. Come on, Susan is here, you know. Get it together, John. I really don't mind. Betty, you should be thankful to Susan. Yeah, I couldn't accept why I was being told all this. However, with Susan present, I couldn't complain and just had to bear it. No, I had no choice but to bear it. After about 3 hours, Susan left, but that wasn't the end of it. I'll leave the cleanup to you, he said, making a mess while drinking and not even offering to help. I couldn't hold back my irritation any longer. By the way, when did you become so close to Susan? I blurted out. The atmosphere in the room instantly tensed. What? Are you jealous of Susan? You, a woman of your age? My husband laughed, pointing at me. It's not that funny. It is what it is. From that day on, my husband completely started to belittle me. Then the situation became dire. The cancer we thought was completely cured had unexpectedly metastasized. Oh, why do I have to be hospitalized again? My husband showed signs of exhaustion, but those were my lines. Since his discharge, I had reduced my part-time work from 5 days a week to 2. The thought of increasing my work hours again was daunting. On the morning of his hospitalization, he suddenly said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, but you don't have to come visit anymore." What? Why? You've been having a hard time too, haven't you? That might be true, but besides, I need you to earn a steady income. He used to look down on my part-time job, but now he was conveniently changing his tune. We had almost used up our savings for his previous hospital stay and surgery. Furthermore, since his discharge, he had been pouring quite a lot of money into his hobbies to relieve the stress from his hospital stay. I was planning to work more anyway. Then stop hanging around here and go work already. Feeling like I was being treated as a nuisance, I decided to leave right away. Well, I'm going to head home then. Hang in there. As I tried to leave the hospital, I passed by a familiar face. Susan, what are you doing here? Oh, hey, come to think of it, Jean is getting hospitalized, right? Yeah, so what about you, Susan? A friend of mine is also in this hospital. I came to visit. I had a small chat with Susan before going home, but I couldn't stop thinking about running into her at the hospital. However, I couldn't put my finger on what was bothering me. In the end, I went to work part-time while holding on to these unsettled feelings. Is that you, Betty? I have a favor to ask. A favor? I thought you weren't going to rely on me. I got a call from my husband the day after he was admitted to the hospital. He had been so aggressive, but in the end, he only came to me with empty threats. That doesn't matter right now. Just get over here quickly. All right, I understand. I'll be right there. Going to the hospital just meant running errands for my husband. After that, he developed various illnesses in addition to cancer, and he repeatedly got admitted and discharged from the hospital. Each time, I kept doing errands and providing transportation for him. Before I knew it, a whole decade had flown by. The reason I hadn't divorced him until now was because of our son. It might be about time, huh? You stayed this long because of me, right? I think it's a good idea, too, my son said. My son's stepfather was strict with single parents due to his own tough experiences. That's why I endured until my son got married. When my son came to visit his parental home, I decided to take a chance and talk to him about it. However, it feels like I'm losing if I'm the one who brings it up. Well, knowing him, he's definitely going to say something. That's why I'm going to wait for a while. I can endure it for that. That's fine, but don't push yourself too hard, okay? I know. However, every time my husband said harsh words to me or treated me badly, he would fall ill. I even started to think that maybe this was his punishment. This time was no exception, as he ended up being hospitalized with a stomach ulcer. Ironically, it felt like it should have been me. However, he seemed okay with medication, so his hospital stay would be short. On the day of his admission, I went to visit him. From now on, you don't need to come visit me, but I do need you to cover the medical bills. What? What are you talking about? I had been subjected to all sorts of things until now, but I was astounded by my husband who just wanted to use me for his convenience. I had been providing transportation for his hospital visits and even paying for his medical bills with the money I earned. You've served your purpose. Thanks for everything until now. Don't joke with me. I'm completely serious. Plus, I'm going to remarry your best friend. My best friend? Don't tell me? Susan? Yeah, that's right. I'm marrying Susan. She's more beautiful and kind-hearted than you. However, this raised a big question. Divorce him and marry me instead, he said, as if the word best friend set off a volcano of rage inside me. My husband continued as if to provoke me further. Sorry, but you need to get out of the house soon. It's not your place anymore. Are you serious? I asked. Don't make me repeat myself. Since when? I pressed on. It's been a long time, probably just after I got sick. I see. Although I was confused by his sudden wish for a divorce, I wasn't ready to agree to it smoothly. My husband might have thought I'd comply quietly, but he was sorely mistaken. I'm busy too. Here, sign this, he said, pulling out divorce papers from a drawer. I was irritated, wondering just how much he wanted to divorce me, but honestly, I was tired of being married to such a person. Fine, I'll divorce you. That's a good decision for once. Yeah, that's right. As I said this, my husband gave me a mocking grin. No holding back now. The curtain on my revenge had risen. In that case, I'll go ahead and submit this divorce paper myself. Is that so? Thanks. Taking the divorce paper from my husband, I decided to go home first. Sitting on the sofa, I took a deep breath. The real challenge was just beginning. I called my son to tell him about the situation. I can't believe you were prepared to this extent. Well, it means you really wanted a divorce, doesn't it? Besides, the timing isn't bad. He was the one who brought it up after all. And if you're getting kicked out of the house, come stay with us. That's a relief, but are you sure? Of course, I've already talked to my wife about it to some extent. Thank you. With that, I packed a few days' worth of belongings in a bag and headed to my son's house. Surprised at how welcoming they were, I felt relieved to have allies. But to think he's been planning this for nearly a decade, what was he thinking? I pondered on my son's muttered words. Thinking about it, there had indeed been signs. She must have come to the hospital to see my husband. I had become so enraged with my husband for treating me like an obstruction and Susan for deceiving me that I'd wanted to make them suffer. But what are you going to do now? Don't worry, I've got this. Huh, the divorce paper? Yes, his name is already on it, and I told him I would submit it myself. Oh, I see. So that's your plan? It seemed like my son had caught on to my scheme. As long as I don't submit this piece of paper to the authorities, we are still married. Though I suspected infidelity, I had no concrete proof. That's why I decided not to submit it immediately and aimed to gather evidence instead. I feel bad for asking you, but I might need your help. That's a given. So where do we start? First, we wait for him to be discharged from the hospital. He wanted me out, so he must be planning to live in that house. But the other party is your best friend, isn't she? Are you okay with that? I let out a deep sigh. If that's the case, then I'm ready. Even though we were best friends, she did something she shouldn't have. At this point, I reached out to a certain person, Susan's husband, Tom. It seems like he was suddenly faced with a divorce just like me. When I made a certain proposal to him, he readily accepted it. Well then, I'm counting on you. I hope this works out. Susan used to tell me that she wasn't getting enough attention, but apparently that was a lie. It seems like she was the one ignoring him. They really were two of a kind. When I heard this story, all I could do was sigh. For now, just leave it to me. I'll make those two pay for their sins. I anxiously awaited my husband's discharge from the hospital. He was discharged about 10 days later. While staying at my son's house, I contacted my husband. I have some belongings I want to pick up. Is that okay? Belongings? Didn't you take everything with you? I'm sorry, there's just something I really need to bring with me. You can throw everything else away. That should be fine. And how's Susan doing? Oh, she's fine. We're going to live together in 2 days, so get everything done before that. I had no intention of following his instructions. It had to be when the two of them were together. 2 days later, my son drove me to the house. I still had the keys, so I sneaked inside. What are you doing here? I swung open the living room door with force. There they were, sitting on the sofa, holding hands. Why are you here? Did you forget? I said I was coming to get my belongings. I glanced at Susan. She looked surprised, her eyes wide open. Susan, long time no see. You look well. Susan looked down, maybe feeling a bit guilty, but it was too late for that now. Just grab your stuff and get out. This isn't your house anymore. Why? This should still be my house too, right? What are you talking about? We're divorced, aren't we? Hearing that, I couldn't help but smile slightly. I did give you the divorce papers, didn't I? The divorce papers? Is this what you mean? I showed him the papers he had given me. You didn't file it? Then go file it right now. Don't worry, I'll make sure to file it later. But first, there's something I need to do. What's that? He looked completely clueless. Since I haven't filed this, we're still married, and yet you've brought a woman into our home. You know what this means, right? He didn't understand, but Susan did. Her face turned pale. John, this is serious. What? Why are you worrying so much? What she's saying isn't a big deal. I was tired of watching him make a fool of himself. You might not realize it, but what you're doing right now is cheating. Cheating? Our relationship has been over for a long time. That might be true, but legally we're still married. If we're doing this, it's considered cheating. He stood up, looking like he was about to grab me. You tricked me. Tricked? Don't be ridiculous. I did say I'd file for divorce, but I never said I'd do it right away. How can I accept that? That's not the issue here. It's your mistake for misunderstanding. Were you getting ahead of yourself? What does that mean? He was blatantly shifting the blame. Of course, I'm going to demand alimony. There might even be a division of property. So that was your plan all along? It's payback for everything you've done up until now. Damn it, that's unfortunate for you, he mumbled to himself, wondering why this was happening. There was one more person I needed to confront. Susan, you realize I'm going to have to demand alimony from you as well, right? But we're best friends. Can't we settle this more amicably? We were best friends until just a moment ago. Oh, and Susan, you did give the divorce papers to John, didn't you? How did you know that? If you brought up this topic, a smart woman like Susan would have figured it out by now. No way. That's right. John hasn't filed for divorce either, so you might get a demand for alimony from him as well. Susan suddenly stood up. I'm going home. What are you talking about? Goodbye. With that, Susan left the house. My husband was left standing there with his mouth agape. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. It's really unfortunate. Even Susan left you. Can you stop blaming others for once? Not everything is my fault. He unexpectedly changed his attitude. You're right. I seem to have forgotten how important you were, Betty. Your words made me realize that. Finally, you've come to your senses. That's right. I was out of my mind. I knew what my husband was about to say, and I didn't want to hear it. I'm telling you now, I'm still going to demand alimony, and we're getting a divorce. I can see right through your intentions. I've apologized. How did I? As if an apology would make me forgive you. What kind of woman would get back together with a loser who even got dumped by his affair partner? Having said my piece, I felt satisfied and started to leave. My husband grabbed onto my leg. Please, I can't live like this. Excuse me, that's none of my business. Could you let go of me? I shook him off and left the house, returning to my son. Alex, how did it go? It was great in so many ways. I see. You do look like you've cleared up. Since we're here, let's eat something delicious before we go home. I had never felt so refreshed. There were still things left to do, but for today, seeing my husband's face of despair was enough satisfaction. A few days later, I requested a divorce mediation from a lawyer. I wanted to settle things before my husband could start any troublesome arguments. He probably never thought it would come to this, but that was his mistake. Hello, Susan. I got a call from Susan on my way back from consulting with a lawyer. There was a moment of silence over the phone. Is there something you need? I'm really sorry about this situation. I will make sure to pay the compensation. All right, and how are you holding up? We've talked it over and decided not to get a divorce. I see. Well, I wish you happiness. Susan seemed like she wanted to say more, but I hung up. I felt like if we kept talking, I might end up forgiving her, which isn't something I could easily do. After all, she had been deceiving me for nearly 10 years. Of course, Susan wasn't the only one who contacted me. You don't have anything to talk to me about, do you? Wait, please, just hear me out. Well, since it's probably the last time, I'll listen. I'm going to be hospitalized again. By this point, I wasn't surprised anymore. How long are you going to be in the hospital? You'll need to handle it yourself from now on. I don't have any money. I've supported you as much as I could until now, but I'm not obligated to do that anymore. Why don't you ask someone else for help? There's no one else who can help. Well, you had someone until now. That's too bad. If that's all you wanted to talk about, I'm hanging up now. Good luck. I was satisfied that I could convey my sarcasm. I could imagine his expression. After that, the divorce was finalized smoothly, and I received the proper compensation. Finally, I was free from the shackles of marriage. I couldn't be happier. By the way, I had a call from him, too. This was a week after I had received the call. Oh, really? Yeah, but of course I told him I couldn't do anything to help. That's the right answer. He should struggle for a while to make up for the past. I am still living with my sons, surrounded by my daughters-in-law and grandchildren. I am happy. I wasted almost 10 years, but it's not too late to start over. From now on, I want to live a peaceful life, making up for lost time.